Welcome to Evolve or Remain with your host, Melissa Mclaughlin.
And LoColle.
And today we have the pleasure of having Colleen Norris with us.
Hello.
Dr. Colleen Norris is a speaker, no crack chiropractor, healer, and founder of Colleen Norris Wellness.com. She helps people with chronic anxiety and health issues get to the root cause and heal by focusing on the health of their nervous system. She uses the same techniques that helped her heal debilitating anxiety, depression, and panic attacks. She's gone from not being able to work, drive a car, and barely functioning to dedicating her career to sharing the tools that saved her life. Her clients have experienced profound shifts in their health, well-being, relationships, and careers. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your bio with me.
Welcome, Colleen.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Pretty amazing stuff there. Honestly, like right up off the bat, I'm sitting here going, okay, like I didn't get a chance to read that bio, number one, right? So you were reading the bio. You saw it originally. But I'm so curious, your process of anxiety, depression, those things, and you utilized your techniques to be to overcome these.
Yes.
So talk to us. Where did the anxiety and depression come from? Where did that all start?
So I've watched all of your podcasts, which has been amazing, by the way.
Wonderful. Yay.
And, I love what you talk about, like the lightning bolt moments. So I think that I'll start with my first lightning bolt moment, which was in 2010. So my son was about 6 months old, and my daughter was around just before 3. And I was actually in a spin class up in Salisbury when it used to be Latitudes. And I was not sleeping at all. I was continuing to just push myself. And I had so much stress and anxiety, and I wasn't really recognizing it. I just kept pushing through it. So I'm in the spin class, and all of a sudden, my legs go completely numb and I feel like I'm going to pass out. So somehow I managed to get off the bike and walk out, and I was completely disoriented. I couldn't bring myself back. So they ended up calling an ambulance and taking me to the ER, and they ran all kinds of tests. And long story short, it was a prelude to me recovering memories of childhood sexual abuse that I had repressed for almost 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So the anxiety and panic attacks, now it took between the time of when that happened in the spin class, it was about 2 months' time between that original lightning bolt, and it was like panic attacks just kept coming regularly. And I ended up finding this holistic medical doctor that also did energy work. And through some energy techniques that he was doing on me, it was like just allowed everything to come up to the surface. So that was one of the most difficult moments of my life, where I just felt crushed, beyond belief. And I knew I had to do things for myself. I knew I had to find ways to be able to heal this, to be able to function, because it was like I was barely functioning at that time. I stopped working. Again, my kids were super young. It was a really, really difficult time. But that's when I started to learn tools and techniques to uncover the things that have been hidden in my body for sometimes decades.
Wow. I mean,
How long ago was that?
That was 2010.
So you have this moment where you had this experience at the gym.
Yeah.
And you say that was a prelude. So you didn't know at that moment what it was.
No idea.
What was the time frame from that moment to when you had finally figured it out?
It was about 2 months.
It was that 2-month period.
And during that 2 months, I was getting multiple panic attacks a day. It was this, I just felt like I had no control over what was happening to me. I was having all of these experiences, which again, at the time I didn't understand what was happening,
Right.
but a lot of what was happening was actually the emotions and the things that I had suppressed from when I was very young. I was actually living those out. So it was almost as if I had like reverted back to like the 5-year-old me.
Right, because we know,
Yes.
and we talk a lot about it on the show, that when you don't process those emotions in that period when they're actually happening,
Yes.
they get stored in the body, and
Yes.
you're gonna end up reliving it at some point in time and having to go through the process of reprocessing them or not dealing with them whatsoever.
Right. Or it was like the other choice was like, or I get medicate myself beyond oblivion,
Right,
and
sedate.
you know, and then I'm like physically here, but like I'm gone inside. So it was super intense because it was like during the time it was like this doesn't make sense. Like, why do I feel like I don't want to be alone? Like it was, at the time when my husband would leave to go to work, I would be like crying. It was just like super intense. And thankfully at that time, the medical doctor that I was working with understood everything that was happening. So that was like one of the biggest gifts at that time in my life was that he wasn't freaking out and he wasn't like, he understood on one level the process I was going through and just really was able to hold space for me and be able to, kind of just be like a rock for me being able to move through these really challenging emotions.
And that's huge coming from a medical doctor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because a lot of the times they don't really understand that energetic piece.
This was divine intervention. Like,
Yeah.
because I remember I had reached out to some people because I was like, I don't know what's happening to me, but like, I know something massive is happening. And I reached out to several people and I was getting like all these names. And so I just started like down the list. I just started calling people. And he was the first one that answered. Of all the other people, like looking back, it was divine intervention, 100%. Because I would never have been able to get through that if I had had like a traditional person.
Do you feel like that moment is when your Kundalini awakening started happening?
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, I know you know a lot about the Kundalini. Can you explain that a little bit to our
Listen.
listeners?
We take that sip. It is basically root chakra energy,
Mm-hmm.
fire energy, coming from the base or that root all the way up through your chakra system, up through your spine, and into your crown. So I've experienced it through a brief introduction to it and pelvic movements and things of that nature. And I swear I was like, wow, this is really amazing to get that flow and that energy moving and stuff.
Mm.
So talk to us about that, because that's where that opened that up.
Oh my gosh. It was like, I mean, at the time I wouldn't, because I wasn't spiritual at all. Like I didn't have any kind of awareness of like, the energy that you put out in the world comes back to you. Like all of that. I was living in like a lot of victim energy. And I was just kind of like plowing through like a lot of like wounded masculine energy too, just like plowing through life.
Yep.
So I really just feel like that Kundalini just like came up and like broke apart. It was like I was like cracked open.
Wow.
And that's what happens with the Kundalini awakening. And it's messy and it's raw.
Every awakening is messy and raw.
Yeah.
And it's all about that snake that wraps around our spinal column, right? Unraveling and just opening up, and that lightning bolt, right? That shift.
Yeah. That was, yeah.
So I want to go back for a second. Yeah, I want to go back for a second there. You had divine intervention with this doctor.
Yes.
And did you go down there? Because you mentioned at one point you were like, I could just sedate myself.
Mm-hmm.
I can go the drug route.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds to me like that didn't happen whatsoever, or did it happen at some level through the initial stages?
No. There was there wasn't any medication that I used at that time. There was another lightning bolt moment that happened during my divorce a couple of years ago, that I did use medication as a tool that was I think very helpful at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'm not against it. I know that it can definitely help in the initial stages and stuff like that. But then at some point, you do have to, you can't use it as a crutch per se.
100%.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting deep real fast, aren't we?
That's what we usually do.
I was like, man, we drove off the cliff. We're here.
Now
We're
I'm
doing it.
curious about the medication. What medication were you using? And what were you using it to treat?
Yeah. So, okay. So if we go to my second lightning, well, I would say my other biggest lightning bolt moment was in 2 years ago. So between March and May of 2022, I had moved out of my house, and my then husband and I decided we were going to get divorced. And so during that time, I was moving out of the house that I had just spent the last 15 years in, helping to raise my kids. The business, because he is a chiropractor, so we had a business together that I had helped start originally from scratch 17 years before that. And that all of that safety and security, everything that I looked to for safety and security and comfort was like gone pretty much. And so it triggered within me the deepest wounding of, am I going to be able to support myself? Am I worthy? Like kind of like what I've seen you posting. I had originally from that sexual abuse, and then there was a thing before that where my dad had passed away unexpectedly when I was 3. And so there was these things that had kind of led to me feeling like I'm worthless, or there's something wrong with me, because in my mind as a child, the only way I could make sense of it was I was being punished somehow. Like, why would like my dad be taken away? And then my mom got remarried a couple of years later to someone who was, alcoholic and just very, very, very challenging person. And so I just kept thinking, like, I must have done something really bad. I must be really bad to have all these things happen. So there was this like almost lifelong wound of like, I'm worthless,
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I think a lot of us struggle with that.
Yeah.
From our own personal traumas and just that feeling. And a lot of our issues in adult life can stem from that feeling of unworthiness.
So the perfect storm of having all the things that I had relied on for safety and security and comfort. And then it was like, it brought up those things to my face. Now, physically, I was having heart palpitations all the time. It was like my heart was like over 100 beats a minute, like at all times. I wasn't able to work. I was having waves of panic and anxiety that just felt like they were tidal waves crashing into me. And so what that led to was I was in that for like a solid good several months. And I got to the breaking point where I was like, I don't know what to do anymore. So I had tried, I was doing breath work, I was doing all the natural stuff that I knew how to do. And nothing was touching it. And I was like, okay, I had resisted medication for years and decades, and I had very specific beliefs around medication. And I was like, I have to try it because I feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack. Something's gonna happen because I just can't get out of this hole in it. So I decided to start on Lexapro, a very low dose of Lexapro. And during that time, I had been in and out of my primary care's office. I had been in the ER a couple times. And so then May of 2022 I was like, I don't know what to do. I kind of just fully surrendered. And I went to a voluntary crisis center for 5 days. And during that 5 days, there were 2 experiences that changed the course of my life. And I left there a different person, even though I still had all of the same physical symptoms. I left there knowing that I was worthy.
Can you tell us the story about Leo?
Yeah.
You know something I don't.
I do. And
Okay.
I
What's
do
going
know
on?
I do know a little bit of Colleen's story because we are soul sisters.
Absolutely.
But she also was a speaker at the recent Women's Business League
I heard that was an
luncheon.
amazing luncheon.
She was
Yeah, it
selected
was.
with two others out of, I think there was like 25 applicants to speak for that luncheon, and she was selected as one of them. So that was amazing, and it was great to see you up there shining bright and just coaching the whole room. There must have been 100 people at that luncheon, if not more,
I saw the pictures on social. Yeah.
and just coaching the whole room on how to step into your worthiness after getting out of that messiness, and it was beautiful.
It's awesome.
So
Thank you.
you're welcome. So yes, I do know about
Okay.
Leo.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's share that here.
Okay. I would love to.
Great.
So, and that was the first time I shared that story publicly, by the way, too, with Leo. So, or that I had shared publicly that I'd gone to a crisis center. So that was a big moment in my healing of really like letting go of shame and things like that around things that I've experienced. And so Leo was one of the people that were in there. He wasn't a worker, a staff member. He was someone in there for his own struggles. And Leo is someone that I would have never come across in my regular life, ever.
Paid no mind to walk down the street. You wouldn't have even thought.
Never.
Okay.
We wouldn't be in the same location. Like that exactly. It would
Understood. It's amazing how the universe works that way.
Right? We would have never crossed paths. Yeah. So in there, every day you have to do these group discussions. And so with some of the topics, Leo and I kind of we just had a connection where we're like, okay, there's similar things that we both have struggled with and things like that. So on the morning of the third day, we were in the kitchen and Leo was making this like peanut butter sandwich with a spoon, because in a crisis center, there are no knives. Like there's no knives allowed.
Makes perfect sense.
Right.
Yeah, I get it.
So he's doing this peanut butter sandwich and I'm like, here's someone who I had never, like I just met 3 days before, and I'm like literally I'm pouring my heart and soul out to this guy. And I'm like, all the things that I've experienced, in my life and talking about my childhood. And I just said, like, I feel like I'm worthless. And he just stopped what he was doing. And he looked away. And when he looked back at me, he like looked me directly in my eyes. And he was like, Colleen, you are worth it. And there was something, it was literally like a divine
being
power was speaking through him, because in those words, it cut through every single, like all the pain, all the trauma, all the negative beliefs I had about myself. Like it literally shattered everything in that moment. And I was like, I believed him. And I didn't believe him in the most amazing thing, because I think we get this wrong. A lot of people think, oh, when I accomplish the thing, when I'm a success, when I have the thing.
Yeah, we're chasing.
We're chasing.
We have the thing. Yeah.
Then I'll feel worth it. Exactly. So it was like at the lowest point of my life, I had no home, I had no business, and I had no clue how I was going to get out of that dark, dark hole I was in. But I chose to believe him anyway. Right. And that's changed everything. And that's what I was sharing was I was like, I left the crisis center physically in the same condition, but inside I left with my worth. And that changed everything.
And that was only 2 years ago, right?
It will be 2 years in May.
So as you look back, this is going to be one of those questions as you look back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just a couple of years ago in May, you have that experience.
Yeah.
Completely shatters everything, changes everything for you. But we look back at 2010.
Yeah.
You mentioned that was the first time
yes.
you experienced anything, anxiety, depression, all those things. During the 2010 and just a couple of years ago, like that's a big span of time.
Mm-hmm.
What was happening within that time frame that you maybe say didn't have that experience earlier? Were there things going on in your life that were still kind of taking control? Obviously, there was marriage, there's divorce, there's life.
Yes. You know? Yeah, I think that there was like, and I had done a lot of healing, right? So it was like I've done a lot of breath work, and I've done a lot of, I mean, you name it, like I've done so many different things. But there was something about going through the divorce that just went into the deepest part,
Yeah.
that I was never been able to get to before that, if that makes sense.
It does.
And I had gone through ups and downs in those, in that, whatever, 12 years, where it was like things were really, really, really good. And then sometimes I would, it would be tougher. And so it was like a roller coaster ride for sure. But there definitely hadn't been anything like there was 2 years ago. That was like,
that was it. That was the, and I think so many of us have that moment in our lives where it's like, it's that moment. Like I can look back and say, yeah, I've done Reiki, I've done breath work, I've done all those things that I did in such a long span of time. Then what was it? It was this moment, it was this traumatic moment in life that literally cut through the core of everything and showed me, oh crap, there you are, standing in front of yourself, having to deal with you going, I am enough.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to tell me that. So that period of 12 years, that initial time frame, right?
Mm-hmm.
How was life? You say that was good. It was these ebbs and flows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How were you dealing with that trauma that started coming to the surface? My Boston came out static.
Yeah, it did.
You heard it. I heard it and caught it, people. All right. So, how did you deal with that trauma during that phase?
So during that phase, okay, so I'll start with, I had been a traditional chiropractor for the first decade of my career. And like I said, my ex and I started a chiropractic office together in 2005. And then, so this was like 2011-ish into 2012. I was like, I can't do traditional chiropractic anymore because I feel like now that I have all of this deepening of how much trauma and past experiences affect your health and your well-being, I was like, what I'm doing, the kind of chiropractic I'm doing isn't touching this for people.
Okay.
So I walked away from chiropractic in 2012,
okay,
which was a huge decision. Still had all the student loans, but I just felt like I'm not able to help people in the way that I really know is possible. So I started exploring all kinds of different things. The medical doctor who was doing the energy work on me when I originally had the lightning bolt, he started training me on how to use the energy work, the technique he was using. So he started training me in that, and I started doing that with people.
Okay.
I also, Akashic Records, I dove down deeply into the Akashic Records and doing that, kind of using that as modality with healing people and healing myself and with people. Breath work was definitely a huge piece of...
Such an amazing modality to help bring that stuff up.
Oh my gosh. Like,
it really is.
So powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful. So I had years where it was like, I'm thinking back and like, I think it was like 2013, 2014, I had years where business was strong, like, this new part of my business was really strong. I wasn't doing chiropractic at all. I had stopped completely. I was going to conferences. I was speaking at conferences. And that was another big thing. I overcame my fear of speaking which was tied with being seen and all of these things. So that's where I kind of really started my speaking career back then. And so it hit like, there were some like really great moments along the way. And then there would just be some tougher moments, and there would be times where I was tired. I was tired of looking at the things. And I think part of it was just like, sometimes I was just too much in the victim of like, I've done all this healing and why is this coming up again? And so I remember one point I had something massive come up during a trip to the Omega Institute in New York, where I just had this like massive panic attack on the highway. And after that, it was like I totally retracted from the business. I was just like, I think just like underneath the surface, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too much. Like I can't. And so I had some years of hiding, and then it was like, boom.
Understood. So you took some time off.
Yes.
Yeah, like I think we all do.
Yeah, sometimes we need that space.
Yeah.
And we need to allow it
Yeah.
to happen. Can we circle back for a second to the Akashic Records?
Mm-hmm.
For those of us that don't really know too much about it, what exactly is that?
Yes. So the Akashic Records is like an energetic database where everyone, I like to think of it as like a back in the day when we had like a library card catalog where it was like, you know, every book has like its number. It's like every soul has a record. And so the way that I was trained in it was to use it to look at someone's divine soul blueprint. So it's, you know, you have a process to tune into the records. And then I was trained in a very specific way to find someone's soul blueprint, to be able to see, you know, what are the choices, depending on like what situation they're struggling with in their life, what are the choices that they've made in this life or in past lives that are coming up for healing.
Past lives is a whole nother wonderful, interesting topic.
Well, that's what I deal with on the shamanic side. So a lot of the traveling to the lower realm, middle realm, higher realm, we can encounter past lives during those journeys. It depends on what the spirit guide, spirit animal is there to show you along the way. Okay. Sometimes you may have to see a past life to see what your behavior was that you carried forward. Something that you may have not had trauma with in this lifetime, but you carried it forward from another lifetime. Exactly. You know, the energy of that choice of that trauma is still living within you. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty amazing stuff.
I've definitely dove in deep into my past lives. It's interesting. And it's also interesting when you meet a soul in this life and you're like,
right away,
we have this connection.
Oh my God, totally.
We know you.
Yeah.
We've been here before.
Right.
How?
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's interesting. And that also brings us to like new souls and old souls, right?
Mm.
So the old soul saying you've been in life form multiple times. Your soul has evolved over many different vessels, right? But the newer soul doesn't have that past life experience.
They don't have that
doesn't go back.
Yeah, you know, I had a mentor tell me too that, you know, if you want to differentiate between knowing who's a new soul and an old soul, you get those new souls that they're probably quote unquote the ones that lack compassion, empathy, probably more of the narcissistic type people because they don't understand feelings and emotions. Okay. Right? So they're probably on the newer soul spectrum. And the way she explained it to me was, if you really want to take a look at our society, our matrix, you'll find those people in politics. Right? So you break down our structure in society and you'll usually find them in politics and stuff like that. You start looking at an old soul or a middle to old soul, those are the ones that are starting to come into the realm of us, right? We're starting to, like, we've lived enough lifetimes to know, like, we have that empathy, we have that compassion for people, we have feelings and emotions, and we're helping others find their way. So that middle soul, and then you just know an old soul, man. Yeah. You look at that person, totally. Like, they're living in the woods. And they're so good with it. Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah. You know? Definitely. So when she broke it down for me like that, I was completely I was like, yeah, makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. Let's get back to you though. Okay. Right? So you used a lot of different modalities. You went from the traditional chiropractic, you took a break in between. You get to this process today of the no crack chiropractic work. Yeah. I've seen the videos. I've never experienced it. I'm one of those people. I'm like, I love it. Put me on the table. I'll try anything. Yeah, right? Yeah. So I've seen you in the videos, and I'm like, I understand energy work. What'd you just do? You know. So what just happened to that area? Because I've experienced traditional chiropractic work. Okay. So I know when you're doing it in certain areas in the lower back, lower lumbar region, whatever it is, and I'm like, I've experienced it in a very, forceful. Traditional crack way. Yes. You know? Yes. What's going on?
Yeah. So I just it's such an incredible technique because so this technique brought me back into chiropractic. This is the reason why I came back to chiropractic because I started experiencing this technique for myself in late 2019, and it was the catalyst for many things for me to just really like it brings your stuff up right to your face. Um, and
Wait a
so
minute, I gotta interrupt. Brings your stuff up right to your face. You're using
yeah,
you're using an energetic form of chiropractic to, wait. Who's over there? Everybody, right? You're using a not a traditional, sorry. You're using a energetic form of chiropractic work to bring stuff up to the surface. We're talking about trauma?
oh, 100%.
So you're utilizing the energetic push and
The
what was
body
your
brings
talk?
it up. Okay, so this is the really cool thing, is that I'm helping the body. All right, so first of all, the technique is called network spinal.
Network spinal.
Network spinal.
Okay.
All right, and I'm just calling it no crack because it's just
Easier to
it's easier for
understand.
people to recognize what I'm talking about. So what I do with traditional chiropractic, what you're doing is you're going to an area where there's tension and you're putting a force in,
Yes.
right? Well, that can actually have the body go into more of a defense because if the body is already in defense,
It's going to restrict even more.
and you're forcefully trying to change it, the body's gonna be like, I'm sorry, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And then it can lock down even more. So really the core of the technique is to get the body into that parasympathetic state where it's that healing state, the resting, the digesting, the regeneration, the rejuvenation, but doing it in a way where the body is doing it. I'm not forcing anything to happen. So when I analyze the pattern, I use the feet. And so I go through a process of analysis to figure out what's the pattern that the body is holding. And then what I do is I go to an area that doesn't have tension, an area that has more ease, more flow. It's connected to the parasympathetic nervous system. And I make a gentle contact in a very specific location. It sends a message to the brain that says, here's the pattern we're working on. And when I make that contact, the body starts to unwind on its own.
Okay.
And through that unwinding process, whatever the body was holding on to then comes to the surface to be naturally. And the body is so wise, it knows what is ready to come up initially. And so it shows up to deal with.
Okay. So I've seen a modality out there called spinal energetics.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen it?
I have.
Is this similar to that or in a tie to it somewhat?
My understanding is that the person who developed spinal energetics has taken pieces of network spinal,
Yep.
And developed their own thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Because I've seen it and I'm like, wow, it looks like amazing work.
Mm-hmm.
I love energy work and it looks like amazing work, but just to have that, like you said, no crack. And by the way, that's a great marketing.
Mm-hmm.
No crack.
No crack.
No crack. That is perfect for anybody that doesn't want to experience that. Because very first time I had it, of course, I had the regular experience of laying down on the table, and he's like, "All right, give me a head," and he's like pulling my head up, and I'm like, "What are you about to do?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was freaking out, and I'm tensing up,
Yes.
and I'm afraid at this moment that could be the last time I see the light. Or the first time I see the light. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
And the thing that is like fascinating to look back on is I always really hated to get my neck adjusted because from one of my biggest coping mechanisms was we need to be in control.
Okay.
And so when someone would go, oh, just relax, and granted, I did this technique and I didn't ever feel like I was going to hurt anyone, but it was like, I just always felt super tense. And then it was like, made me even more tense.
Of course.
That fight or flight.
Yes, exactly. And so again, we can hold so much trauma up there. And so to have a different way to approach it in just a gentler way. Now, don't mistake it. It's incredibly powerful. Like I've seen miraculous things happen over and over again. So don't mistake the gentleness for it not being powerful, but it's just a very different way.
Amazing.
And I know with the manual techniques, I need to use the activator. For years, I was seeing a chiropractor and getting the adjustments done, and I would walk away in more pain. Just in the nerve pain. It's a very different type of pain. And then when he got to my neck, I would tense up because of my traumas, right? I needed to feel, it did not feel safe in that moment. So it really did not have the effects that I wanted it to. So I'm really interested in having this conversation. I would love to actually get on your table and try out your technique.
That would be awesome.
Very cool.
I would love that. Yeah.
And it's great how you talk about the body heals itself.
Yes.
Because I do practice the craniosacral therapy, so a lot of it's nervous system, and your body already knows what it needs to do to heal. Your body
100%.
already knows how to restore.
Yes.
But it's so dysregulated or dealing with so much inflammation that it needs that added help
Exactly.
to get there.
Right, and it's holding that repressed emotion or that negative beliefs or that trauma, the energy of that trauma, and it's just like then it just stays in that loop.
Yeah, it's creating that container, that safe space.
Yes,
that allows for that release.
Exactly, and the body has to feel safe.
It does
for that release to happen.
Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah.
So let's circle back a little bit because. You said you had a business with your husband at the time.
Yeah.
Right? And you just went through a divorce a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That brought up a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
What that relationship dynamic, working with your partner, I guess because I've been married and divorced myself.
Okay.
So I understand the struggle of, being with somebody and going through that process, and then talk to me. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so it was very unique because when we graduated from chiropractic school, we both were on the same page about the kind of technique that we wanted to practice. And so he went to practice, Dr. DeGeorge, who has since passed, but he was an incredible chiropractor for the technique that we were practicing at that time. And he went to do like an associate position in his office. And I went to New Bedford for a chiropractor that had also been an associate in Dr. DeGeorge's office. So essentially we were going into learning the same things, but two different locations. So when we started together and opened the practice, I mean, personally, I thought it was like we were like on the same page,
In sync.
In sync.
Yes.
You may have been at that time.
Right.
We were at that time when we were totally in sync. We were on the same page of how we wanted to practice, and it was, sometimes it gets lonely being in business on your own. So it was amazing to have someone that have someone you like bounce ideas off as and things like that. So from my perspective at that time, it was, and a lot of the times when we're at work, we're interacting with patients. So it's not like we're at a cubicle just staring at each other
like you
all
spent
day.
all that time together and then to go home.
Yeah.
Go home now and go, we just saw each other.
Right. Yeah. So it was unique because when we were at the office, we're not like we were working with patients.
Right.
So, there was a time that it worked until it didn't.
Okay. What didn't? What happened? If you don't mind sharing.
Yeah. So it was definitely, the first piece was when I stopped doing chiropractic in 2012. That was definitely a challenging time.
That added some tension to the relationship.
Yeah, that definitely was a challenging time for sure. And then I think like when I was coming back to chiropractic and back to things, it was just like we just grew in different directions, and the divorce has been amicable. We're on good terms.
That's great.
It's just like we were just going in different directions.
Got it.
So, yeah.
So basically it was a mutual situation.
Exactly.
Like, you know what? I think we've come to a place where
this is complete. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, even though it's when you're with someone 20 years, married 18, like that's a long time. but we both knew that it was for each in our own best interests to move on.
For you.
Yeah.
Because that's not the case, unfortunately, in a lot of relationships, especially when you own a business with somebody.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm really proud of how we went through the divorce. We went through mediation. We didn't try to, screw each other over or anything like that. Like, we both very respectful and.
Sounds pretty mature. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty evolved.
Pretty evolved.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Pretty
So I'm
amazing.
very grateful for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what, I guess looking at it all, what was your biggest challenge? Like, you've had the lightning bolt moments and stuff like that, right? But take a look at your entire life. What would you say was one of the biggest challenges you've had in life?
My worth, 100%. And just being able to do the deep work of feeling the things that I had been running from, like the shame and the grief and the anger and sadness and all of that. That was really when I left the crisis center, when I said I still had all those physical symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
What I started realizing was when I get that wave of panic or anxiety that I was describing as a tidal wave, I actually stopped and I was like, okay, universe, help me out here. What's happening here? And I started to realize that energy, it was shame. A lot of it was shame. And then I acknowledged it. I was present with it. And I just started instead of trying to run from it or push it away, I just was with it. And I was just being with it and moving with it. And it was I did that every single day for months. And all my physical symptoms went away.
That's amazing. Wow. Working with your emotions.
It's a game changer, and no one teaches you how to do it.
Nobody.
There's no class in school.
Well,
Right.
I mean, when we're younger, we're told not to feel certain ways, right? We're told to repress.
It's amazing that you have to get to a certain point in life or a certain class or something, a psychology class or therapy or whatever it is that you go through to find out there's actually an emotional tone scale. They don't use this when you're kids. Are you kidding me? Should be one of the first things that they bring out.
100%.
How are we not being taught what emotions are and then how to regulate our emotions when things come up?
Exactly.
It's a whole school.
Don't get me started on what they should be teaching in school, okay?
I know, right?
Listen, I love the people today that homeschool their children. I know a lot of people have issues with that and stuff like that, but at the same time, they're really taking, I know somebody right now, and that child is just enlightened, man.
Yeah.
He just knows so much more than I ever did at that age, and he's 12 years old. And I sit there and I look at him and I'm like, my Lord, you know things and you're in touch, you're connected.
Yeah.
When we were so disconnected as children.
Totally.
So that's the biggest challenge that you experienced, right? So how do you keep yourself in check today? Do you still have moments?
Gosh, yeah.
Moments,
oh
right?
my gosh. Of course,
You
absolutely.
get that imposter shit going on sometimes.
Oh, 100%. And so what, one of the things that is I'm so committed to my growth. That's one of the most important things in my life. And I will not keep myself small anymore. I will not hide. I will not do those things because not only it hurt me, but it hurts other people that I could potentially be helping,
Right, of course.
So I continually focus on doing things that scare me. And so,
tell me.
Facing your fears. I love it.
Okay. Give me an example.
Okay.
An example that you can share?
Well, okay. So the most recent one was the speaking, the event that was a couple weeks ago. So that was 140 people that were there. So that was the biggest crowd I'd ever spoken to. And it was also, I was sharing the part of my life about going to the crisis center had created, I had felt so much shame before, no one can ever find this out, no one, how would they change how people look at me and all of this stuff. And so it was in the couple days leading up to that, when I was practicing my talk, I went through waves of like just like bawling my eyes out of like, am I really gonna do this? Like, I'm really gonna do this. And just like the range between shame and also like being so proud of myself for doing all these things, like that whole gamut of emotions. So that's the most recent was just doing that speaking engagement. And now it's just like I'm thinking of like writing a book, and I want to get paid to speak. I want to go and I want to speak.
High five, because I'm right there with you.
Are you?
Oh,
Okay.
yes, absolutely.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
'cause I saw you put out there that you're looking for more speaking
Yeah. Yeah.
She's looking for more speaking
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep. But I am as well.
Okay.
You know, and
All
I think
right.
it's important for us to all get out there and share our story with others that potentially help, even if it's just, and everybody always says it's just that one person. Yeah. I'd
Yeah.
love to be able to be in front of 5,000 people to know that at least 1% got what I
Yes.
said.
Absolutely.
That's all I care about. I don't care about anything else. Like, did I help someone?
Yes.
You know, being in service today for me personally is where it's at. That's the most important piece for me. Yes, there's business, there's all these other things and stuff like that, but the business today is built on service.
I totally agree. And I think like what you're doing with the podcast and like sharing the stories, like talking about like the drugs and the alcohol and the addiction and like all of that, it's like people need to hear that because just alcohol alone, it's so normalized, and by the way, I haven't had a drink in like 8, 9 years. It was like, I can't do this anymore. Like,
It was a choice.
It was a choice. But these are the things that people need to hear, these real conversations about, like the struggles that, instead of having just like, the reels on Instagram and just like everyone's
Right.
life is perfect. And, it's like, no, let's have real conversations about like what's happening in
That's
life.
bullshit. Just because you don't drink, you don't do drugs anymore and all this other crap doesn't mean life is absolutely perfect. You're still going to have moments.
not.
You're still going to have stuff. You're in a relationship. Shit's going to come up.
100%.
It just is what it is. I've fallen in naturally into the relationship coaching.
Interesting.
And I do a lot of that coaching today. And I start with the relationship with self.
Yes.
Our inner relationship.
Yes.
The most important relationship.
It's the most important relationship.
Exactly.
But I'm also working with a lot of people right now that the relationship with self is directly spiraling outward to the relationship that they're having with everyone else, right? So whether it be an intimate partner or friendship, so I end up doing a lot of relationship coaching.
Okay.
And I look back and I'm like, and my friends probably do see me now, right? They're like, how the hell is he doing relationship coaching? He was the worst fucking relationship guy in the world. I didn't know how to hold down a relationship at the time. And that was because I didn't know how to hold a relationship with myself.
Yeah.
So I've fallen into that. It's very, and there's times where that imposter thing comes up for me.
Oh gosh.
Where I'm like, no, I do know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I got to check myself here. Like, I know what's up. But I'm still learning along the way.
Right.
I pride myself in still learning along the way. If things come up in my relationship or whatever it is, that I can set a time aside and go, here, okay, let's talk. Let's bring this up.
Yes.
Let's chat about this and process. And if we need to have 1 or 2 more conversations, great.
Yes.
But it's fucking hell doing work all the time.
It is. It is, but what I recognize now is that like every time you go through like that level, like whatever level or whatever you're moving through, there's more liberation, there's more freedom, and it's like focusing on that, instead of like, oh, this is the work. It's like, oh no, but I feel freer, and I have all of these other experiences that I can now have in this way that I can connect with people that I wasn't ever able to do before because I had so many walls up.
So amazing. This movie, I tell you, I don't know why I didn't want to watch it for a little while, and I ended up watching it the other night. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Have you seen it?
No.
No, you got to see it.
Apparently it's on Netflix, so we have to have a movie night.
It's got to be a movie night. Go for movie night.
Mm-hmm.
So the gist of it basically is like there's one line in the movie that stuck with me so heavily. Okay. Is that this is the only universe I've come to. This is the only universe out of thousands of universes that I've come to. And you in this space right here, you haven't done anything. You're scared of everything.
Mm.
You haven't accomplished anything in your life that you started off to try to accomplish. And in the same breath, he says to her, that means you can do anything. It's literally like completely zero and all at once.
Wow.
And it just blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, capable of everything because you haven't done anything.
Yeah, that's amazing.
A little twist. Yeah. You got to watch the movie because there's a lot to it.
I will definitely
Please
watch
Yeah,
the movie.
yeah.
Because that's the second time it came on with us today.
Yes,
You
it
heard that-
did.
You heard that earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's that thing that drives you today?
I think what drives me is knowing where I was 2 years ago and never ever wanting to go back there again. Like knowing like I wasn't, like planning to kill myself or anything like that, but I think I was like secretly hoping that something would happen because I had no idea. I had no clue how to stop being in pain. And it was just like it consumed everything. And so I like anytime something comes up, so I'm like, nope, I'm dealing with it right now. Like facing it, even if it's hard, even if it feels uncomfortable or it's inconvenient, I'm doing it because I am never going back to that place again.
You got to go through it.
Yeah.
My question, what the hell was happening astrologically 2 years ago?
Oh, it was an
Because
eclipse
that was my
season.
lightning bolt too.
Mine happened in eclipse. There was an eclipse.
You're right, and there's one coming up actually next month.
Yes. Actually,
Yes.
it's the first one's Monday, the 25th.
The first one's Monday. Okay.
Is that what I'm feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's what
There's some
you're
shit
doing.
going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot. Yes.
So the spring equinox, right? Which is, I had to be reminded by Courtney. I was like, what the hell is going on? She's like, dude, spring cleaning. I was like, right.
Yes.
Right. Spring cleaning, not just spring cleaning. We're spring cleaning our lives energetically.
Yes.
It's not only the spring equinox, it's also the beginning of the astrological new year. So we're
Okay.
stepping into that expansiveness,
Exactly.
right?
Action, growth. Talk about masculine energy. This is where
Yes.
some of that energy does kick in.
Cultivation,
Yep.
all of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have retrograde starting back up too soon, I think,
Mhm.
right?
We do.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
And I was just listening to a podcast on the way here. There's a lot of stuff happening with Chiron too, the wounded
Yes.
healer that's coming up. So it's like,
Makes perfect sense.
So what
Yeah.
what did you hear in the podcast about Chiron recently? I've actually been thinking about him because I'm curious with what I'm going through right now. Where Chiron, what that is doing. Because I'm seeing a lot of healers
Mhm.
going through it right now.
Yes.
Yes, so it's like pretty important that there's like I can't remember all the conjunctions and all the things, but it's like a lot of stuff happening with Chiron during the Mercury retrograde. So it's like bringing up all of the stuff. Kind of part of it is like seeing how far you've come, seeing what's still there to work through right now. So it's just like, and it's also going to be with the North Node in Aries. So there's a lot of, depending on where that is in your chart. For me, this is in my career, my 10th house of career. So we can look at the house too if you want to.
It's a growth phase though.
Absolutely growth phase.
Yeah, it's a
100%.
massive growth
Yes.
phase. And I was just saying that to someone earlier this morning. I was like, I feel like I'm in this weird little like holding pattern. And then that person was like, but just for today. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just for this
today.
hour. Just for this hour.
Yeah, just for this. And I'm like, because it's going to kick off like crazy. And I can feel that energy starting to come in.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So you brought up the wounded masculine,
Mhm.
right? And I love talking about the divine feminine, divine masculine, because I'm the male sitting here at the table. I'm usually one of like several females in a lot of groups that I'm in, because this industry is filled with females,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But you're talking about that wounded masculine energy. And so do you feel like you had a lot of masculine energy and
100%.
what are you doing to, I guess, bring yourself into that feminine, or how did you bring yourself into that feminine? Because I'm sure there's a lot of women out there that want to understand that. You know?
Yeah. So how it showed up for me was needing to be in control. So it was like, I'm the leader. I'm calling all the shots. I'm pushing, I'm dictating everything, and it's got to always go the way that I want it to go. Which in a
Sounds pretty
relationship, which in a relationship doesn't work out too well.
It doesn't ever.
So I recognize, in this process of looking back on, what's my part of this? What do
Right.
I want to change? And, what I want to call in moving forward. And it's like, okay. So there's definitely been, and the trauma work has helped me tremendously because to me, it's like the feminine is softening. It's like softening in like
Nurturing, caring.
nurturing, surrendering, receiving, like just that loving, compassionate energy,
Right.
which I was never giving to myself. I was always super hard on myself. And I would just, it was like, wanted to be perfectionist and just, again, all the stuff that stemmed from trauma. And so it's just been first about giving that energy to myself. Like, let me give myself some grace and like some compassion, and let me give myself love that like I had been searching outside of myself for, all these years.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
To step into that space, because it can be hard to do, especially coming from a place where you probably had to like, you're in survival mode, you're in protection mode,
100%.
You're hiding. You're like, no, nobody come near me, nobody touch me.
Absolutely. And it was like, like just from like stemming from when my dad passed away, it was like, oh, okay, I'm shutting off my ability to love. Like I don't, because it was just like, even though I was very young, just the memories I have, like I just, which may some of it be, like romanticized a bit, but like that, like just that divine masculine love, like that protector and that, someone who's there and just having that leave, it was like, okay, I'm cutting myself off from the world. No one's ever going to hurt me again.
Wow.
It's like, yeah, that's a really crappy way to go through life.
Absolutely.
It's like lonely. Even when you're surrounded by people, you feel all alone. And just decided I'm not doing that anymore. Yeah. Letting people in. I think that's also part of it. Just
how are you letting people in now?
That vulnerability.
Yeah, exactly. Showing up more like without the masks of like, okay, this is who I am. And if these people don't like and accept me and want to hang out with me, that's okay. I'm going to be okay. But I'm going to show up as myself and just kind of see who then jives with that, and then spend time with those people.
It's hard to put yourself in that space of like, I don't care what anybody thinks.
Absolutely.
Right? And we all do it, right? I just saw the look in your face. You're like, I don't care what anybody thinks.
Oh, right. Well, it's like, right. And it's not that I don't care what anybody thinks,
right.
But it's just I can't use that as like the driving factor.
Of shutting yourself down and not showing your true self.
Yes. Exactly.
Right. Between doing something or not doing something. Getting up on that stage and speaking to 100 women.
Yes.
And not speaking to them.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
It was like that. You're like, no, I know my worth. I know who I am. I'm comfortable and I'm going to get out there and I'm going to do it. I don't care.
Right. Yeah. I care more about how I feel than I do about people talking stuff behind my back or what they might say or, rumors or blah, 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 whatever.
So true. Wow. That's, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very powerful when you can step into that space.
Yeah.
Yes.
It feels good.
And then you attract the like frequencies as well.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what else would you like to share with our audience? What do you got going on? What do you want them to know?
Oh, gosh. Do the uncomfortable things. Like, face the things you've been running from. Like, check yourself when you're, if you're on Facebook, you're scrolling Facebook, you're on Instagram, you're zoning out, watching TV, like, just check yourself. Like, okay, what's really going on here? It's not saying you can't ever do those things. Like, I'm not perfect. I catch myself doing those things. But when I ask, like, okay, what am I running from? What am I not feeling? What am I not processing? I have always found when you face the thing you've been running from, your life gets better. Like, in that moment, it doesn't feel good, but like your life always gets better.
Amazing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, thank you so much for sharing.
And where do you practice?
Yeah, my office is in Newbury. It's in Newbury, Mass, at a yoga and healing center called Roots to Wings, right on Route 1. So I have a
Familiar.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have my own room in there
It's awesome.
where I see people.
And how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so Instagram is at Colleen Norris Wellness. My website is www.colleennorriswellness.com. And I have a video on my website of me practicing the no crack chiropractic, as well as Instagram, many videos as well. So that those would be the best places to find me. Yeah.
And she will also be at the November 2nd
Yes.
Yeah.
Which we
Wellness
mention all the time.
Expo.
Yeah, November 2nd this year, going to be at the Topsfield Fairgrounds. Huge North Shore Wellness Expo for our holistic wellnesspreneurs. And it's going to be pretty awesome. We got 2 buildings at the Topsfield Fairgrounds. We got the Coolidge building where all the vendors are going to be housed, and we got the B building. And I'm naming them that way because if you're from the North Shore and been to the Topsfield Fair even just a couple of times, you'll know what I'm talking about. So we're going to have workshops and so much going on. So definitely keep an eye out for the links for that so that you can attend. But Colleen is one of our vendors, and she's going to be there.
Yes. And I'll be offering treatments.
Oh, look at that.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So, Melissa, any other questions you would like to ask?
No, I know Colleen, so.
You guys are tribal women.
Yes, we are
Yes.
tribal women.
Good stuff.
It's my soul sister, one of them.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for calling and for being here.
Thank you for
We
having
appreciate
me.
it. Yes, and thank you for sharing your story because we know it can be really difficult to get it out there and have it shared with the masses, you know, and
Yeah.
whoever is listening out there. But hopefully it helps somebody or
Yes.
a bunch of people.
Exactly.
So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you so much for being our first guest speaker.
I know. I'm so
Right?
honored.
That's right. First episode. Oh, I love it. What's up? Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So stay tuned. We will have another episode coming up.
2 weeks.
Yep. And we'll see you soon on Evolve or Remain.